When discussing Wolverine movies, two films often come to mind in this topic. X-Men Origins Wolverine is acknowledged as the bad film, and Logan is remembered as being the best of the franchise. However, there's a film that has been forgotten amongst the others, and that's James Mangold's The Wolverine. The Wolverine is often overlooked due to its somewhat predictable finale that can disturb the upsides to the film. But this film on its own is still a solid entry in the X-Men franchise and deserves a watch for its unique style. There are often themes of honor and life throughout the film, and I'd love to explore it in this video essay. That's why The Wolverine is considered an honorable sequel to what came before.
What kind of monster are you?
The Wolverine.
The story. A haunted Wolverine journeys to Japan to bid an old friend farewell and gets drawn into a conflict involving ninja and yakuza in a standalone spin-off set following after the events of X-Men Last Stand. The story begins in Nagasaki as a B-29 bomber appears in the sky and air raid sirens begin to howl, panicking Japanese troops who begin committing harakiri. Terrified yet unwilling to sacrifice his own life, young soldier Yoshida takes cover in a heavily fortified prison pit containing the immortal Wolverine, who shields himself from a deadly blast. Decades later, Wolverine has sworn off violence after he was forced to kill the love of his life, Jean Grey. Confronting a hunter who has used illegal poison-tipped arrows when the sword-wielding Yukio comes to his aid and summons him to Japan at the behest of the dying Yoshida, now the head of the world's largest and most powerful tech giant. Just hours before passing away, Yoshida implores Wolverine to protect his granddaughter, Mariko, whom he has personally chosen to take over the family business, much to the chagrin of his plotting father, Shinigami. When the Yakuza attempt a high-profile kidnapping of Mariko during Yoshida's funeral, Wolverine comes to her rescue and receives some much-needed help from Ninja Harada. Narrowly escaping with their lives, Wolverine and Mariko go into hiding as the Yakuza relentlessly chase them. But the battle is far from over, and with Wolverine's healing powers mysteriously diminished, he may not be able to protect Mariko for long. Oh, sorry if I mispronounced some names and some terms in there. There's a lot of Japanese terms and names in there that I just do not know how to pronounce correctly. This plot synopsis was, however, provided by IMDb, and I cannot find the name of the individual who had written this, but either way, thank you very much. Japan. A unique aspect to this film is that it takes place in Japan. This is common for the character of Wolverine, as one of his rogues is the Silver Samurai, and he's had many missions within their grounds in the past. Mangold takes some of these stories from the comics and makes his own interpretation of what that would be like, and they're unique in their visual style and tonal style. The opening scene has Logan as a World War II captured soldier begins the film in Japan and gives us a great sequence of saving a Japanese soldier before he commits harakiri. Saving the soldier from a horrid death via Nagasaki bomb and displaying the vision for Logan that will be throughout the entire film. It's an amazing sequence, and I love the visceral nature just shines the themes through Logan's perspective. His pain. Another element to Japan that works well is how its style blends with the atmosphere and the sequences of the film. When Wolverine battles with the Yakuza, the scenes take place in more of a neon lit and futuristic setting. When the scenes tie more into his humanity and require more emotional beats, it's much more of a traditional Japanese setting. Its style works well and in utilizing the setting and culture of Japan to enhance the themes within Logan's character. The Wolverine. One thing this film had established before Logan had taken it to the next level was the humanity within Wolverine, the pain that comes with the character that seems nearly unstoppable. He longs for a death and protects those that actively avoid their own. He takes the pain that he knows that he can endure that others cannot. This film gives us more of an inside look of Logan's mind, his world, and it seems painful. He longs for a death throughout the film and is constantly surrounded by pain. The beginning of the film is him actively avoiding humanity, actively avoiding pain and inflicting pain on others, perfectly making the ending of Last Stand somehow work in this movie. This film takes what makes the character of Wolverine work in the comic books and explores those in his character as well. Wolverine is a character constantly surrounded by pain, and his brand of heroism also inflicts pain as well. I mean, the mutant hero literally has bladed weapons protruding from his hands. People are going to get hurt regardless, and this film touches on that. Hugh Jackman embodies that amazingly, and in this film gives an excellent performance. Action film. I know that we've discussed the deeper elements to the film, but it's also unashamed to be a comic book film with innovative action sequences. As much as this is a character study for Wolverine, it's also an over-the-top action movie. There are many great sequences throughout the film that display Wolverine's many years of combat experience and use of his overall surroundings. The loss of his healing factor makes these scenes more intense, as we know that he can't just take injuries and keep fighting. He must be more strategic with how he fights against odds that he'd normally have no trouble with. Yukio has some brief but flashy action sequences that give a bit of flair to mix up the more direct action. However, when I think of this movie, there are two action sequences that come to mind. That is the bullet train fight, as it's very creative and utilizes its surroundings perfectly, as you expect from a Wolverine battle. There are even moments of humor that work well in mitigating the tension. The second action scene is the battle between Logan and Shingen. It's not super flashy, but the cinematography, along with the display of Wolverine's human or healing abilities, makes it resonate within my mind, and it feels like it's a straight out of the comic book moment, as how these strikes would normally affect a normal person but have no effect on this behemoth of a mutant. Yukio. I really like the sidekick type role that this character takes on throughout this film. She plays well off of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and gives her own unique confidence and presence in sequences of dialogue. Her mutant ability of seeing the future of someone's death is an interesting power, as it adds tension to the overall film. It also perfectly works with the philosophy of Wolverine's character throughout the film, and seeing his death that he's longed for but in his life that was not prophesied. I love their dynamic, and I'm kind of disappointed that it never went anywhere after this film. However, her prophecy would go somewhere and would come to pass years later in Logan.
I saw you die. There's blood everywhere. I see you on your back. You're holding your own heart in your hand.
The Silver Samurai. Silver Samurai is the main villain in this film, and it's fitting. He's one of Wolverine's main villains in the comic books and takes place in Japan. It wouldn't feel right if he was not in the film. However, in his villain is why the film is often written off by fans. He's given a design far less interesting than his comic book counterpart, traded for something that looks straight out of a Michael Bay film. That's why the film really begins to lose people. It's because all the intrigue for the villains is removed for spectacle. It betrays everything that the movie had established at this point: the style, the tone, the themes, making the third act really miss the landing. In conclusion, The Wolverine is a very interesting Wolverine character study with great themes throughout. It also is unashamed of being a comic book action film that can both better and hinder the overall experience. The film completely falls apart by the third act and displays villains one-dimensional that they feel like they're in a separate film entirely. The Viper could have been an interesting antagonist as the person removing Wolverine's healing ability, but is an underlying lackey that has nothing really interesting about her except her visual style. Silver Samurai's identity is played up to be a huge surprise by the end of the movie, but is already ruined before the halfway point with Yukio's vision of not seeing him die. Mariko could have been an interesting love interest as the daughter of the main villain, but is a basic action movie girlfriend with very little to note. And finally, this is my personal nitpick that I would give, and this is just very nitpicky. I wish that they had done something more unique with the lack of healing factor than just getting hurt more. He supposedly doesn't heal, but why are there no exit wounds where his claws would pop out, or suffering from adamantium poisoning, which he would be dealing with without this healing factor? All in all, it's still a solid film and shows how each Wolverine film had gotten better and better. A solid watch that is still more interesting than most of the X-Men films. It honors what comes before and sets up what will kind of work later, and for that, I'd say it's an honorable sequel.